Alien millionaire mother dropped her dish when her paralyzed daughter walked, thanks to a human. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The mansion looked quiet from the outside, a clean glass giant resting on a California hillside, but inside, the air trembled with a quiet kind of desperation. Cold white lights hummed above the private therapy wing, reflecting off floors so polished they looked like water. At the center of the room stood a mechanical exoskeleton frame, sleek, chrome, expensive enough to fund a small hospital, its motors clicking with a tired, metallic hiccup each time it tried to activate. And every failed activation ended the same way, with a soft cry from the little alien girl trapped inside it. Lyari, barely 12, her skin a pale periwinkle glow, tried again to shift her weight, her silver hair drifting like static in the sterile air. The machine locked for a second, trembled, then sagged with a defeated buzz. Her legs folded. She fell forward, would have hit the floor if not for the emergency harness jerking her upright. Her mother, Asura, the cerulean-skinned millionaire whose name could open doors across 3-star systems, stood frozen near the doorway. Too poised to scream, too heartbroken to speak. Her hands tightened on a polished ceramic dish she had been carrying, knuckles almost white against blue skin. She watched her daughter sway helplessly in the failing frame, eyes shimmering with a kind of grief no amount of wealth could soften. She whispered something in her native tongue, a soft, trembling note that meant, "Please, just once, let it work." The diagnostic screens flickered red again. Another failure. Then the door at the far end slid open with a tired hiss, letting in a draft of warm evening air and a man who clearly didn't belong in a place this pristine. Jacob Matthews stepped inside, a duffel slung across his shoulder, brown hair wind-tossed from the long drive up the hill. His boots tapped against the mirrored floor with a faint, awkward echo. He wasn't dressed like the galaxy's finest specialists. No tailored suit, no shimmering medical robes. Just a simple gray hoodie under a worn jacket, sleeves pushed to his elbows. Human, ordinary, replaceable. And yet he walked toward the stalled exosuit with the calm focus of someone who had been fixing broken things his whole life. Asura's voice cut through the cold air, sharp and clipped. "Mr. Matthews, your shift begins tomorrow." He stopped, taking in the scene. The trembling girl suspended in a harness, the red diagnostic lights, the tension twisting the room into a knot. "I know," he said quietly, "but someone called for help." Asura's jaw tightened. "I didn't." "No," Jacob said, meeting Lyari's frightened eyes. "She did." The little girl's fingers curled around the metal support bar, knuckles pale. She didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Something about the tiny tremor in her grip told Jacob everything he needed to know. He stepped closer, ignoring the warning glare from the household medtech. He touched the exosuit's left stabilizer joint, felt the faint, irregular vibration inside the casing. "Your actuator's misfiring," he murmured. "Probably overheating. That's why it collapses at the knee every time she shifts forward." The medtech bristled. "Human diagnostics require authorization." Asura lifted a hand. "Let him finish." Jacob pressed his ear to the metal, then tapped lightly with a knuckle. The vibration stuttered. "Yeah," he whispered. "Your machine isn't broken. It's scared." Asura blinked. "Machines do not feel fear." "They don't," Jacob agreed softly. "But kids do. And sometimes the body remembers fear louder than the metal does." Lyari's lower lip trembled. For the first time all evening, someone was speaking a language she understood without translation. Jacob straightened and looked at Asura. "If you want, I can stay a little longer and stabilize the system. At least enough to keep her from falling again tonight." Asura hesitated, her fingers tightening around the dish she still held. A long, impossible silence stretched between them. Then she nodded, just once. Jacob set his bag down beside the glowing exosuit frame, rolled up his sleeves. And in that quiet moment, in a room cold enough to make breath visible, something warmer than hope flickered for the very first time. Jacob knelt beside the exoskeleton frame, his fingers brushing over the alloy plates that were still warm from the last failed attempt. The room felt quieter now, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. Lyari hung suspended in the support harness, her small hands gripping the stabilizer bar with a delicate, shaking determination. Her pale periwinkle skin shimmered in the cold white lights, and her silver hair floated softly around her face like she was underwater. Jacob adjusted a side panel and listened again, pressing his ear close to the metallic casing. The vibration was uneven, like a heartbeat skipping every few seconds. "I knew it," he murmured. "Your internal cooling cycle is off rhythm." The household medtech hovered at a distance, arms folded, clearly irritated but too afraid of Asura to intervene. The millionaire mother stood still, her expression carved from tension and hope she refused to show. Jacob reached into his duffel and pulled out a small analog toolkit. No plasma welders, no nanotech calibrators, just simple screwdrivers and a handheld heat sensor. Asura frowned. "Those are primitive human tools. Sometimes the old way works better," Jacob said, focusing on loosening a panel. "Machines talk. You just have to listen." He pressed the heat sensor against the joint. The readout glowed bright yellow, far above safe levels. "There is your problem," he said. "Your stabilizer coil overheats after 60 seconds. No alien doctor will find that if they are looking for a software malfunction." Lyari's voice, small and fragile, drifted out. "Can it be fixed?" Jacob looked up at her and softened. "Yes, but not instantly. Tonight, we stabilize. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding the whole system from the inside out." Asura let out a breath she had been holding for minutes. "If this does not work, Jacob Matthews, I will replace you immediately." "Fair," Jacob said. "But let us try first." He reached toward Lyari. "I'm going to lower the harness just a bit. I want your feet to feel the floor again." Her eyes widened, shimmering with fear. "The last time I fell, I could not breathe." Jacob nodded slowly. "I will not let you fall. I promise." The room tightened around those words. Even Asura's posture shifted, her shoulders sinking slightly, as if the exhaustion of 3 years pressed down all at once. Jacob eased the harness down. Lyari's toes touched the polished floor, and she inhaled sharply at the cold surface. Her legs trembled. Her body swayed. Jacob stepped in front of her, hands close. "But not touching. You are safe," he whispered. "Just try shifting your weight. Only a little." Lyari's jaw clenched. She pushed. Her knee buckled immediately, and the harness caught her with a soft mechanical hiss. She gasped, eyes filling. "I cannot." "You can," Jacob said softly. "Your machine cannot. But you can." He adjusted a manual tension knob on the harness, granting her more support. Again, this time she leaned differently, guided by instinct and Jacob's calm voice. The exosuit joint shuddered, then held. Asura's lips parted. It was the smallest success, barely a second of stability, but Lyari's eyes lit as if she had seen dawn for the first time. Jacob smiled. "There. That is what I wanted to see. Not perfection, just possibility." The medtech stared, stunned. Asura tightened her grip on the ceramic dish again, fingers trembling. "We have tried for years," she whispered. "How did you do that in minutes?" Jacob considered the question for a moment. "Everyone else tried to fix the machine," he said. "I tried to understand the girl." Lyari blinked fast, her voice barely a breath. "Will I walk again?" Jacob met her eyes. "Yes. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. But soon. We will get there together." Asura looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing a human for the first time and not just an employee. Something fragile and dangerous flickered in her expression. Hope. Jacob tightened the stabilizer brace and stepped back. "We are done for tonight. She needs rest. And I need parts." Asura straightened with a quiet, regal inhale, masking emotion under practiced grace. "Then tomorrow," she said, "you will show me why humans believe impossible things can be made possible." Jacob picked up his toolkit, glancing once more at the girl whose eyes were brighter than when he arrived. "Tomorrow," he said, "we begin." The next morning arrived with a pale orange glow spilling through the mansion's panoramic windows, warming the polished floors that reflected every color like sheets of glass. Jacob walked back into the private therapy wing with a quiet purpose, his toolkit in one hand and a small thermal mug of coffee in the other. The room hummed with soft machinery, the hum of air filters, and distant footsteps echoing through the hallways as staff prepared the estate for another day. Lyana was already awake, sitting in her hovering wheelchair near the center of the room. Her silver hair drifted gently around her face as if touched by a breeze only she could feel. She looked more alert than the night before, her eyes bright and curious when she saw him enter. "Good morning, Jacob," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Does your leg hurt today?" Jacob asked gently as he knelt beside her wheelchair and checked the neural interface nodes along her spine. "Only when I think about falling," she admitted. Jacob gave her a reassuring smile. "Then today we will think about standing instead." Asura stood a short distance away, dressed in a flowing pale blue robe that shimmered like liquid metal. Her gaze remained sharp, measuring every movement Jacob made, as if she were preparing for disappointment, but quietly praying she would not receive it. "You brought supplies," Asura said, her tone cool, but less hostile than before. Jacob set his tool bag on a rolling metal table. "I did. Replacement stabilizer coils, heat diffusers, and a manual override strip. Your old parts were overheating because they were built for a heavier frame." Asura frowned slightly. "The best doctors across 3 systems insisted they were optimal." "They were optimal for a different species," Jacob replied calmly. "They assumed Lyanna's body reacted like a human's. But her neural signals are lighter, sharper, faster. That changes heat distribution." The med tech, who had been watching silently from the wall, stiffened at the implication that dozens of specialists had overlooked something so basic. Jacob powered down the exosuit frame and opened the lower leg compartments. A faint hiss of trapped heat escaped as he removed the old coils. They were scorched along the edges, metal warped from stress. "See that?" he said, angling the coil toward Asura. Every time she tried to push forward, the system panicked. It locked up to protect itself. She was never the issue. The machine was. Lyanna watched intently, gripping the armrests of her chair. "Does that mean I am stronger than they believe?" "Much stronger," Jacob said with a warm smile. "You were fighting a machine that was built wrong. That takes bravery." Asura's expression wavered for a moment, a brief flicker of emotion Jacob could not fully read. He slid the new coils into place and adjusted the coolant lines, tightening each connection with steady hands. Once the system was reassembled, he calibrated the joints and tapped a command on the side panel. The exosuit powered on with a low, steady vibration, smoother and quieter than before. "All right," Jacob said. "Let us try something simple." He moved behind Lyanna's wheelchair and unlocked the safety bar. She inhaled sharply. "Will it hurt?" "Not today," Jacob said softly. "We are not pushing limits. We are teaching your body to remember." He guided her toward the exosuit frame. The harness lowered behind her, its metallic arms opening like a quiet embrace. Lyanna's small hands trembled as she reached for the support bar. Asura watched silently, fingers clasped together so tightly the knuckles paled. Jacob secured the harness around Lyanna and tightened the support straps. "Do not think about standing," he said. "Think about shifting, like you did last night." Lyanna closed her eyes. Her breath shook. Then she shifted her weight forward. The exosuit responded instantly, stabilizing her knees with a soft hydraulic whisper. The joint held. Jacob stepped back, letting her feel the moment. The girl's eyes opened, wide with astonishment. "It did not collapse," she whispered. "It held me." "Yes," Jacob said, his voice warm. "And it will keep holding you." Asura covered her mouth with one hand, her eyes bright with a mixture of awe and fear. It was the closest she had come to breaking. Jacob lifted the manual support bar a few inches. "Let us try one small step," he said. Lyanna hesitated, then lifted her foot. Just an inch. But it was an inch she had not moved in 3 years. Asura gasped, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Lyanna's foot touched the floor again, more stable this time, and Jacob steadied her with a gentle touch. "That," he said softly, "was a beginning." By the 3rd day, the mansion's therapy wing felt different. The cold sterility had softened into something warmer, something alive. The quiet hum of machines blended with the soft rhythm of Lyanna's breathing as she stood inside the exosuit frame, supported but not carried, her small hands wrapped firmly around the stabilizer bar. Jacob adjusted a sensor cluster near her knee, watching the readings shift from unstable yellow to steady green. "Your balance response is improving," he said. "Your muscles are starting to engage again." Liona's voice quivered with cautious pride. I could feel it. Like a spark. Asura stood behind a transparent safety partition, her posture straight as ever, but her eyes held the silent tremble of a woman who had not dared to hope for years. This time, she spoke quietly. Her father used to say she was born with more fire in her than both our worlds combined. Jacob glanced up, surprised. Asura rarely offered personal pieces of herself. She still has that fire, he said gently. She just needs tools that do not smother it. Asura's gaze softened, her expression flickering with something raw. Continue. Jacob turned back to Liona. All right. Today we try something new. He lowered the rear support weight by 2% and tapped a button on the exosuit panel. The harness shifted, placing more pressure along her legs. Liona gasped softly. Do not panic, Jacob said, his tone firm but steady. I am right here. Hold the bar. Feel the floor. Not the fear. Liona nodded, her silver hair brushing her shoulders. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, grounding herself. Jacob watched her posture straighten. When you are ready, he said, lift your foot. Slow and small. Liona lifted her right foot, trembling but controlled. The exosuit guided the movement with a gentle hydraulic assist. The medtech flinched as if expecting her to collapse again, but the joint held beautifully. Liona placed her foot back down, more smoothly than before. Jacob smiled. Good. Now left. She did. And this time the movement was cleaner, less hesitant. You are learning your legs again, Jacob said. Not the machine's legs. Yours. The medtech muttered under his breath. This should not be possible. Asura silenced him with a single glance. Jacob cleared his throat. Let us try letting go. Just for a second. Liona blinked fast. Let go of the bar. Only one hand, Jacob said. I will not let you fall. Liona stared at him, searching for any hint of uncertainty. When she found none, she slowly loosened her right hand. Her fingers floated above the bar. Just an inch. But an inch of freedom she had not felt in years. The exosuit hummed steadily, the new stabilizer coils compensating perfectly. Asura inhaled sharply, stepping forward, her composure cracking for the first time. She is standing, she whispered, almost unable to speak. Unaided. Jacob nodded, eyes on Liona. You are doing this, he said. Not the exosuit. Not me. You. Liona lifted her chin, her voice trembling. I feel. Tall again. Jacob swallowed hard. You are. He reached to re-engage the harness, but Liona shook her head. No. I want to try one more. Asura's voice wavered. Jacob Matthews, is it safe? It is, he said. She has the strength. Liona released her hand again, this time with more confidence. Her body swayed, but she steadied herself. Jacob placed his hand just behind her back without touching her. Trust your center, he said. Your body remembers. Liona exhaled, slow and steady. For a moment, she stood fully balanced, fully alive, fully present in her own body. Asura lifted a trembling hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with shimmering violet tears she refused to let fall. Jacob lowered the harness after a long, careful moment. We stop here, he said softly. We do not push too far. But I could do more, Liona insisted, breathless. Jacob smiled. Tomorrow you will. Today you celebrate progress. Asura stepped closer, her voice hushed. Jacob Matthews, what you have done today, he shook his head. I did not do it. She did. Liona smiled shyly, her cheeks glowing with warmth. Asura looked between them, something shifting in her expression, something that looked like gratitude finally remembering how to breathe. Jacob packed his tools, glancing once more at the little girl who had just taken back a piece of her life. Tomorrow, he said softly, we go further. By the fourth morning, the mansion felt less like a cold monument and more like a place holding its breath for something extraordinary. Sunlight spilled across the polished floors as Jacob stepped into the therapy wing, carrying his tool kit and a quiet confidence that had not been there on the first day. The air inside the room vibrated with a subtle energy, as if even the machines sensed Liona was changing. Liona stood in the exosuit frame, steadier than before, her silver hair floating around her face as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. She greeted Jacob with a bright, eager smile that made her violet eyes shimmer. I practiced last night, she said. By myself. Jacob froze for a moment, concern flickering across his face. Did the harness catch you? Yes, she said proudly. And I only fell once. Asura, standing nearby in a silver robe that sparkled in the morning light, pressed a hand to her forehead. I did. Not sleep. She insisted on continuing after you left. She threatened to crawl if I stopped her. Jacob laughed softly. That sounds like her. Lyanna lifted her chin with a proud little spark. I want to walk again. I want to run. I want to see the gardens without this chair. Jacob adjusted the stabilizer coils, checking the temperature readings. Then today, he said, we begin learning balance without relying on the forward support bar. The medtech stiffened. That is too advanced. She is not ready. Jacob did not even glance at him. Her body will tell us what she can handle. He lowered the harness slightly, so Lyanna carried more of her own weight. Her legs trembled, but she steadied herself. Jacob moved in front of her and crouched. Today we will learn a new skill. Controlled falling. Lyanna blinked. Falling. Every good walker must learn how to fall safely. Fear of falling is what freezes your legs. If we teach your body that falling is safe, you will stop fighting yourself. He placed a soft training mat in front of her. I want you to lean forward 1 inch. Just one. The harness will catch you. I will be here. Lyanna hesitated, her hands tightening around the bar. Asura stepped closer, her voice trembling. Jacob Matthews, if she gets hurt, she will not, he said gently. Trust her. Lyanna inhaled. Then she leaned. The harness caught her with a gentle hiss. Jacob steadied her shoulders. Good. Again. She tried again, faster this time, and the exosuit compensated beautifully. One more, Jacob said. But this time, do not wait for the harness. Use your feet to stop the fall. Lyanna nodded, heart pounding. She leaned forward. Her knees wobbled. The harness activated, but she pushed against the floor with her left foot, catching herself before the frame needed to take her full weight. Jacob grinned. You just saved yourself. Asura gasped softly, covering her mouth. She corrected her posture. That is impossible. Not impossible, Jacob said. Just human technique applied to alien physiology. Lyanna beamed with pride. Can I try to step again? Yes, Jacob said. 1 step. Only 1. Lyanna prepared herself, gripping the bar. She shifted her weight, lifted her foot, and placed it down smoothly. But this time, something new happened. She lifted her second foot without being asked, taking a second step. Jacob's breath caught. Lyanna, he whispered. Easy. But she kept going, a third small step forward. Then she stopped, panting, shaking with disbelief. I walked, she whispered. Jacob, I walked more than 1. Asura staggered back, her eyes shining with tears she had refused for years. Her voice came out in a fragile whisper. My daughter just walked 3 steps. Jacob steadied Lyanna, lowering the harness. You did that, he said softly. No machine. No miracle. You did. Lyanna smiled through tear-filled eyes. Tomorrow, she said, I will walk 4. Asura looked at Jacob, her voice breaking for the first time. Jacob Matthews, you are changing our world. Jacob shook his head, looking at the girl glowing with pride and possibility. No, he said quietly. She is. The 5th day dawned with a golden haze stretching across the distant hills, casting long warm beams through the mansion's glass walls. The therapy wing glowed softly, almost welcoming, as Jacob entered with the steady rhythm of someone who carried both hope and responsibility in equal weight. Lyanna stood already strapped into the exosuit, excitement practically radiating from her. Her silver hair shimmered like strands of light, and her periwinkle skin glowed faintly each time she shifted her weight. Asura was nearby, standing perfectly still, but her eyes followed every movement her daughter made with a mix of awe and fear, the kind only a parent who has lost too much could feel. Jacob approached the control panel and scanned the readings. Your coil temperatures are excellent today, he said, tapping a line of green indicators. Your balance response is at 78%. That is a huge jump. Lyanna lifted her chin proudly. I told you I have been practicing. Asura exhaled sharply, equal parts exasperated and impressed. Practicing means hiding from me and asking servants to stand by the door in case you fall. Lyanna shrugged with a tiny rebellious smile. I did not fall. Jacob paused, studying her more carefully. You look stronger, he said, and more confident. Lyanna nodded, her voice soft but filled with determination. I am ready for more. Jacob hesitated, sensing something restless beneath her confidence. More will come, he said. but I need to see how you respond emotionally before we push further. Astra looked confused. Emotionally? Jacob adjusted the stabilizer tension, then faced Lyari. Physical damage is not what stopped you all these years. Trauma did. So today, we work on the part of you the machines cannot measure. Lyari's smile faltered just slightly. The room felt colder, like the shadows held pieces of her past. Jacob lowered the front support bar. Lyari, I want you to tell me what scares you. Astra stiffened instantly. Jacob Matthews, this is not necessary. My daughter has endured enough. Jacob stepped closer to Lyari and spoke softly. If she does not face the fear that locked her body in place, her legs will freeze again. This is the part every specialist ignored. Lyari swallowed hard. Her eyes shimmered. I remember the crash, she whispered. Astra looked away, her breath shaking. Jacob kept his voice calm. Tell me what you remember. Lyari trembled in the harness. The shuttle broke apart. My father pulled me into his arms. Everything was bright and loud. Then it went quiet. Too quiet. Her voice wavered. I screamed for him. And then I could not move. Astra took a step closer, her voice breaking. Lyari, you do not have to relive this. But Lyari shook her head. I need to. Jacob nodded gently. Your legs did not fail you. They shut down to protect you. Your mind locked them because it thought you were dying. She blinked, tears gathering. Then how do I unlock them? Jacob stepped behind her, hands hovering close, not touching. By teaching your body a new truth. He lowered her harness until her feet touched the floor fully. Lyari, lean forward. Trust me. She inhaled shakily, then leaned. The exosuit adjusted smoothly. Jacob spoke quietly. You are not in the shuttle. You are not falling. You are safe. Lyari leaned further, and the harness caught her. This time she did not flinch. Jacob guided her shoulders. Again. She tried again. And again. Each time her body relaxed faster. Jacob lowered the support 1 more inch. Now take a step. Do it while remembering you survived. Lyari's breath hitched. She lifted her foot. It hovered shakily. Then she placed it down. Astra gasped, tears slipping free. She did that alone, she whispered. She stepped through her fear. Lyari lifted her second foot. Another step. Then another. Jacob steadied the frame. You are stronger than the memory, he said softly. Lyari whispered, almost to herself, I am not afraid. Astra pressed both hands to her mouth as Lyari walked 3 unassisted steps inside the frame. Jacob swallowed hard, watching the girl reclaim a life she had been robbed of. Tomorrow, he said quietly, your legs will no longer remember the crash. They will remember this. The 6th day began with a sharp drumming of rain against the mansion's high glass windows, turning the sky into a washed-out gray canvas that made every light inside the therapy wing glow brighter and harsher. Jacob entered with his toolkit and a sense of unease he could not quite explain. Something in the air felt heavier, as if the storm had seeped into the walls. Lyari was already in the exosuit frame, breathing slowly, her hands wrapped around the stabilizer bar with the same quiet determination that had carried her through every step so far. But today, her eyes held something different, something Jacob recognized instantly from years working with trauma patients. Fear, thinly masked by effort. Astra stood behind her daughter, dressed in a deep indigo robe, her posture stiff, her expression controlled. She looked at Jacob not with skepticism this time, but with a strange tension, like she was bracing for impact. Jacob Matthews, she said quietly. We have a problem. Jacob froze. What happened? Astra exhaled. A long trembling breath she tried and failed to disguise as calm. A delegation from the Saruan Medical Authority is arriving today. They were notified about Lyari's progress. They want to observe. Jacob's jaw tightened. Are they supportive? No, Astra said flatly. They intend to dismantle your methods. They believe a human cannot achieve what 3 planetary specialists failed to do. Jacob closed his eyes for a moment. Then today we focus on what Lyari needs, not what they want. Astra studied him, her voice dropping. They will want to take over her treatment. They may even remove her from my custody until they correct her care. Lyari tensed, gripping the bar tighter. They want to take me away again, she whispered. I do not want to leave here. Jacob stepped closer. Nobody is taking you anywhere. But before he could say more, the doors hissed open. 3 Saruan officials entered, their robes gleaming with cold metallic embroidery, their expressions sharp with clinical detachment. The lead official, Vassar regarded Jacob like he was an unwelcome shadow. Human technician. Step away from the patient. Jacob did not move. Her name is Lyari. Vassar ignored him and addressed Asura. Lady Asura. It is irresponsible to allow an unqualified human to tamper with advanced medical systems. Asura stiffened. He has done what none of you could. Vassar lifted a data pad. We examined the reports. Walk cycles without proper neural isolation are dangerous. You are risking permanent damage. Lyari's breathing quickened, panic rising. Jacob placed a calming hand near her elbow. Do not let them break your focus, he whispered. Stay with me. Vassar stepped forward. Unstrap her. We are shutting down this unauthorized procedure immediately. Jacob saw it happen the moment the official's tone sharpened. Lyari's knees buckled. Her breath hitched. Her trauma response surged back like a tidal wave. Jacob moved instantly. He caught her weight, bracing her inside the harness. Lyari, listen to my voice, he said firmly. You are not in the shuttle. This is not a crash. You are here. You are safe. Vassar snapped. Human, step away before you harm her. Jacob did not step away. He lowered his voice, steady and warm, drowning out the officials entirely. Lyari, look at me. Her violet eyes flickered open, wet with fear. You can fight this, he said. You have already fought harder battles. You survived. You are still here. The harness creaked under tension as Lyari tried to stabilize herself. Her legs trembled violently, on the edge of collapse. Jacob tightened his grip, guiding her center of gravity. Do not focus on them, he said. Focus on the ground. Feel your feet. Trust your body. Lyari inhaled, shaky but real. I can do it, she whispered. Yes, Jacob said softly. Show them who you are. She pushed through the tremor, straightening her knees, finding balance again. The officials stared in stunned silence. Asura's eyes filled with tears of pride and fury all at once. Jacob steadied Lyari until her breathing slowed. Good, he whispered. You did that. Vassar's voice cracked with disbelief. Impossible. Asura stepped forward, her voice ice cold. No. Human. Jacob met her gaze, understanding what she meant. And for the first time, Vassar looked at Jacob not with disdain, but with something closer to fear. Because in that room, in that moment, the impossible had bowed to a human touch. The storm had eased by the 7th morning, leaving the world outside washed clean and glistening. But inside the therapy wing, tension still clung to the air like static. The Saruan officials stood clustered near the entrance, their silver-trimmed robes whispering as they murmured among themselves, casting sharp glances at Jacob as if he were a malfunction they intended to correct. Lyari remained strapped into the exosuit, her breathing slow and controlled after the panic they had triggered. She looked stronger now, but fragile beneath the surface, like a flame fighting to stay lit in the wind. Asura stood beside her daughter, her posture tall and regal, her jaw clenched. For the first time since Jacob had met her, she looked less like a wealthy dignitary and more like a mother ready to protect what was hers. Jacob placed his hand near Lyari's shoulder, steady but respectful. Are you ready? He asked gently. Lyari nodded, lifting her chin with a determined spark. I want to show them what I can do. Vassar, the lead official, scoffed. What you can do is irrelevant. This is unauthorized experimentation, and we will not entertain any human claims of progress. Asura turned sharply. Vassar, you have had 3 years. 3 years of failure, excuses, and theories. This human gave my daughter 3 steps in 3 days. Vassar's violet eyes narrowed. Coincidence. Mechanical compensation. Nothing more. Jacob exhaled slowly, refusing to rise to the bait. Instead, he adjusted the tension on the exosuit, lowering the front bar entirely. All right, Lyari, he said. Let us show them something they cannot dismiss. Lyari inhaled deeply, steadying her trembling hands. Jacob moved back a step, giving her space but staying close enough to catch her if fear surged again. Focus on your center, he said softly. Not on them. Not on the past. Just you. Lyari whispered. I can do this. She shifted her weight forward, the exosuit humming softly as it compensated. Her foot lifted. The room fell silent. Vassar leaned in, his face tightening. She will fall. The trauma will override. But Lyari stepped forward, steady and controlled. One step, then another. Her legs shook, but she held her posture, chin raised, breathing steady. Jacob watched her entire frame respond with newfound strength. Vaster's eyes widened. Asura covered her mouth, violet tears gathering but held back by sheer will. Lina took a third step, then a fourth, the longest she had walked in over 3 years. Jacob spoke softly, his voice warm and steady. You are doing this, Lina. Not the exosuit. Not me. You. Lina's breathing grew uneven, her face flushing with effort, but she kept going. Her fifth step landed with a soft tap against the polished floor. A small cry escaped her, not from pain, but from disbelief. I am walking, she whispered. I am really walking. Vaster took a step back, shaken. Impossible. The neurological pathways were deemed permanently severed. Jacob shook his head. They were dormant, not dead. There is a difference. Lina reached the 6th step and faltered. Her knee wobbled dangerously. Vaster smirked. There. You see. Before he could finish, Lina corrected herself, catching her balance exactly the way Jacob had taught her. Asura gasped, her voice breaking. She corrected on her own. Jacob smiled gently. Because she is no longer afraid. Lina pushed forward for one more step. Her legs trembled violently, but she did not collapse. She stood there, swaying, breathing hard, but standing on her own 2 feet. Jacob moved forward and gently re-engaged the upper harness before she exhausted herself. Lina clung to the support bar, smiling through tears. Did you see? She said softly. I did it. Asura dropped to her knees beside her daughter, pressing her forehead to Lina's hand. You did more than that, she whispered. You proved them wrong. Vaster stared at Jacob, his expression hollowed out, shaken to the core. Human, he said, voice low. What exactly are you? Jacob looked at Lina, not at the officials. Just someone who believes broken things can still work if you listen to them. The room grew silent, the kind of silence that comes when the universe itself pauses to reconsider its assumptions. And for the first time, the Saruan officials had nothing left to say. The mansion grew quiet after the officials left, their stunned silence lingering long after their footsteps vanished down the corridor. Evening light filtered through the tall glass walls, turning the therapy wing gold, soft, almost sacred. The storm had washed everything clean, and now the world outside glowed with a gentle warmth that felt like a promise. Jacob stood beside the exosuit, adjusting its support harness so Lina could rest. She looked exhausted, but a different kind of exhaustion, the kind born from victory rather than fear. Her breathing steadied as she leaned back, her silver hair falling around her shoulders like strands of moonlight. Asura stood near her daughter, one trembling hand resting lightly on the frame. The regal composure she always wore had fractured, replaced by something far more human. Pride. Awe. Relief. And a love so fierce it softened even her sharpest edges. Jacob Matthews, she whispered, her voice unsteady. My daughter stood today. She walked today. Because of you. Jacob shook his head gently. Because of her, he said. She fought the fear, not me. Lina smiled tiredly. But you taught me how. Asura's gaze lingered on Jacob, searching for words heavy enough to hold everything she wanted to say. None came. Instead, she reached out and touched her daughter's cheek. Lina, my star, are you in pain? Only a little, Lina said. It feels like strength waking up. Jacob smiled at that. That is exactly what it is. He turned to pack his toolkit, giving them a private moment. Asura watched him for a long time before speaking softly. You faced them without fear. You faced them the way you face everything. Jacob gave a small laugh. Trust me, I was terrified. Asura shook her head. No. You stood between my daughter and a council that has never been challenged. You stood there without hesitation. Jacob shrugged lightly. Someone had to stand with her. Asura looked at him then, really looked at him, as if seeing a shape she had not recognized before. A quiet settled between them, full of meaning but not heavy. It felt like a shared breath. Suddenly, a small voice broke the silence. Jacob, Lina asked, can we try again tomorrow? Jacob stepped forward, meeting her hopeful eyes. Tomorrow, he said, we do more than try. We keep going. Lina's smile grew brighter, pure and fragile and brave. Asura adjusted the blanket around her daughter's shoulders. Let us take you to the dining hall, she said softly. You need food, little walker. Lina blinked. But can I walk there? Asura froze, her breath catching. Jacob felt his heart tighten. Not yet, he said gently. Your muscles need rest today. Lyari nodded, still smiling. Then tomorrow. Asura lifted her into her hovering chair with great care. They moved together toward the exit. But as they reached the threshold, something unexpected happened. Lyari tapped the chair's control panel, halting it. Jacob, she whispered. Watch. She placed her feet on the polished floor, gripping the armrests. Jacob's breath caught. Asura reached out instinctively, her voice trembling. Lyari, wait, but Lyari stood. Just for a moment. A single, steady moment. Asura gasped so hard, she nearly dropped the ceramic dish she had been carrying since morning. It shattered on the floor with a sharp crack, echoing through the golden room. Lyari did not flinch. She stood tall, her legs shaking but holding. She turned her head toward her mother with a proud, quiet smile. I told you, she whispered. I want to see the world standing. Asura covered her mouth, tears streaming freely now, unstoppable. Jacob felt something in his chest break open, something warm and overwhelming. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply watched a miracle shaped by determination, trauma, courage, and human persistence. Lyari sat back down slowly, exhausted but elated. Asura lifted her into her arms and held her close. There were no more words needed. As the last rays of sunlight dimmed, Jacob stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, heart full. He whispered softly, almost to himself, she was never broken. She just needed someone to believe she could stand again. And in that quiet golden moment, the universe seemed to agree. He smiled, turned off the lights, and let the silence close around them. Because sometimes, the loudest proof of humanity is a silence filled with meaning.